Good morning. My name is Kristen Zeyer. I am an account manager at Infinity Benefit Solutions, and today I will be talking about how to manage prescription costs. So the topics that we will be covering today are why manage prescription costs, some different statistics and trends when it comes to prescription cost management, the value of generic drugs, educating and empowering your employees, and then we're really going to get down into the nitty-gritty of how to manage prescription costs and some different strategies that are available. And finally, I will share some resources at the end that are here for you that you can request from your account manager or your employee benefits consultant and distribute to your employees as you see fit. So first, we're going to talk about why manage prescription costs. So I don't think it's any secret that healthcare costs have been rising drastically in the US for the past couple of decades. There does not seem to be any end in sight. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, otherwise known as CMS, predict that by the year 2022, drug costs will grow to $355 billion per year. Now contrast this with the year 1990, total prescription spending was $40.3 billion. So drug costs are increasing at a faster rate than other healthcare spending, so employers, employees, and consumers should review and strategize cost-saving drug options. Also, from the employer point of view, there is an employee factor. So there is a mutual interest for the employer and the employee for people to save money on their prescription drugs. For example, employees who only use brand name drugs, which can be very expensive, may forego their prescriptions as a cost savings measure. The result of this for the employer, lost productivity, increased stress on the employee, and other potential health issues that could arise when people don't take their prescriptions that they need. So let's just talk about some of the statistics and trends when it comes to prescription drugs. So there's a lot of people that take prescriptions in the United States. In fact, about 105 million Americans regularly take prescriptions. About 36% of males and 51% of females regularly take a prescription drug. And out of these people, about 96% are covered by health insurance. As far as the ages go, 18 to 39-year-olds, there's about 24% that regularly take a drug. Contrast this with older Americans who are over the age of 65, and about 74% are taking a prescription drug. The average number of drugs taken is 4.7. Annual out-of-pocket spending is $570. So this really is far-reaching. Managing prescription costs impacts so many different people. So it's really important to understand what our options are here and to educate employees on them. So I want to take a moment to really highlight the value of generic drugs. So generic drugs can sometimes be seen as inferior, but that is simply not true. In fact, nearly 8 in 10 prescriptions filled in the United States are for generic drugs. These drugs can be sold cheaper and they do not have to pay for costly clinical trials, which is why they are so much less money. And as a result, generics cost 80 to 85% less than name brand drugs. And so generic drugs can sometimes be misunderstood as subpar or not up to the same quality standards as name brand prescription drugs. Consumers recognize a brand name and consider the unknown labels as inferior products. This is actually really unfortunate because generic drugs are not only of the same high quality as name brand prescriptions, but they usually cost a lot less, about 80 to 85% less, as we saw in the last slide. And one thing I thought was really interesting is that many generic drugs are actually made in the same manufacturing plants as name brand drugs. So if someone is a little bit concerned about taking a generic drug over a name brand, they should understand that a generic drug must actually meet the following criteria before the FDA will approve them. So, there is a pretty rigid standard that these drugs must go through. And so it's really important to educate and empower your employees. So teaching your employees the value of buying generic and other cost-saving strategies so that they can save money is in the best interest of you and them. And an effective way to begin employee education is by integrating information about prescription cost-saving measures into your benefits communications. So one way you can do this is you can send informational articles or emails to employees explaining the differences between generic and brand name medications. You can encourage them to request generics when filling a prescription. There will be some additional resources at the end of this presentation, so you can distribute those resources to them. Some other ideas is you could hold lunch and learns or wellness campaigns within the company to promote education, empowerment, and engagement. And here at Infinity, we're always happy to help with that, so that's something we can definitely discuss further as well. So switching from brand name to generic is just one way to manage prescription costs. There's actually a whole different variety of ways, and I'm going to explain some of these in greater detail and go through these with you. And so the first one is to combine pills. So it's possible that someone could be taking 2 drugs for 2 different conditions. This is actually pretty common. That means you're paying for 2 prescriptions. So a person who is in the situation can speak with their doctor to see if there is a drug that can actually help treat both conditions. Review the formulary for lower cost drug options. Formulary is a list of medications that a drug plan will cover. So for example, within a formulary, there could be a drug that someone is taking that is considered a tier 3 or 4 drug. If someone talks to their doctor, they might be able to find an alternative that would move into a lower cost tier, like a tier 1 drug. So that's always an option. Another idea is to follow step therapy rules. And what this means is that participants in a health plan must try the lowest cost version of a medication before moving on to the more expensive version. So typically what this means is trying generic drugs before moving on to name brands. If you ignore these steps, you could end up with a larger bill. So it's important to follow the procedure of the step therapy plan. Another idea is to ask for an exception. There are situations where drug plans will pay for a drug that is not on its approved list. These occasions usually happen if your doctor says a specific drug or medication is necessary, and it can happen if you speak with your plan provider. You could use preferred pharmacies. Some employers and carriers may utilize preferred networks or pharmacies. This means participants receive a discount on their drugs just by going there to fill their prescriptions. Another one I want to talk about is just being cautious of online scams. Some websites advertise drug prices that really are too good to be true. Often they're under the guise of a Canadian pharmacy. Unfortunately, the mass majority of these sites are fraudulent and offer drugs that contain toxic substances. There's a couple ways you can verify them. If you want to make sure you're visiting a legitimate pharmacy website, look for .pharmacy in the web URL. Also, if you're still uncertain, there is a website called legitscript.com, and you can check there as well. You can also talk to your doctor. So chances are your doctor is not considering price when prescribing your medication. You might be paying for an expensive name brand drug, and you can definitely talk to your doctor about more affordable options. Similarly, you can also speak with your doctor about reducing the number of medications you take, adjusting dosages, or splitting pills. You can also check around for prices on drugs. Shop around for other potentially cheaper pharmacies. Unless your prescription drug plan includes a preferred pharmacy network, there's really no reason to not look for affordable places to fill your prescriptions. For example, large stores like Walmart offer many generic drug alternatives at lower prices. Avoid drugs advertised on TV. So the drugs seen on TV are usually the newest and therefore are more expensive. Just because they are new doesn't necessarily mean that they work better than the older drugs. And so if you're considering switching your medication, talk to your doctor and see if there are any cheaper alternatives. Another idea is for certain conditions, you could consider non-prescription medication. So an example of where this could come into play is with an allergy medication. You can buy non-prescription allergy drugs, And really, you should only seek a prescription if you have severe allergies. And lastly, you can buy prescriptions in larger quantities. Sometimes medication is cheaper when bought in larger quantities. If you have a chronic condition that requires daily medication, ask your doctor for a 90-day prescription. So there's a lot of different ideas here. And with the 90-day prescription, that kind of is a good segue into the next thing I really want to talk about here, which is mail order prescriptions. So many carriers offer the option for mail order prescriptions, and basically what this means is that participants can have their drugs mailed to them just by signing up, and the prescriptions are then delivered directly to their homes instead of the pharmacy. Usually it is at a cost savings, and it also is a lot more convenient. Now, this isn't going to work for every prescription, but for a lot of maintenance prescriptions, this is a really great option. So here at Infinity, we do have a lot of different resources and materials for you if you do want to, help educate your employees. We have different flyers and articles and posters that you can hang up. And like I mentioned earlier, we always are happy to help with educating your employees through different ways of engaging, like lunch and learns or webinars or newsletters and things like that. So just make sure you reach out to your account manager or your employee benefit consultant, and we are happy to help you with that. So if you have any questions, just connect with your account manager or your EBC, and they will be happy to help you. Thank you for your time today.